Hello everyone, welcome to the animation again. What we're going to cover today is the timeline of Adobe Animate CC. And we're going to start by just clicking on ActionScript 3.0. And from here, just to keep you in the hang of adjusting the size of the stage, 1280 by 720. Now we're going to go ahead over here and change the size to show frame or fit in window, either or. And now we're going to begin by creating some things on the timeline. I'm going to show you again the layers, folders. We'll delete something, and then I'll show you some insert frames, keyframes, and insert blank keyframes, and I'll explain what the difference is between all of those. So I'm just going to use the brush tool today, and I'm going to start by drawing just a little circle. And that is my one little shape there. So now I'm going to go ahead and just call this circle. I double click on it to rename. Now I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call this one, let's say this one will be like a big triangle or something. So I'm just going to go ahead and go here, here, here. Okay, now both of these are on separate layers. So if I click on here and I drag it over, you'll notice that this is here directly underneath it. I'm going to go ahead and fill this color in. And I'm going to fill in the other one as well. Now, with that being said, I'm going to call this one triangle. So this is explaining sort of the layers and the timeline and how it all works together. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this directly over here, and it's overlapping. I'm going to create one more layer, and this one's going to be a triangle and a circle. Rename it. It's always extremely important to keep all of your layers named. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to draw a circle first, just like I did last time, except I'm going to make the color black. And now I'm going to also draw a triangle. Okay. And again, I'm going to make these the same color as the other one. And you'll notice when I fill this one in, unlike before, that because they're overlapping on the same layer, you're going to notice, this time I'll make it blue, and then green. So the blue is where it intersects. So what you'll see here is that in order for this to be able to be separated from one object from another, if I select just the outline, you'll notice because all of that same color is all connecting in every region. If I zoom in, you'll notice it connects here, and that's why if I select off or select on, it will highlight all those regions. Now because they're all the same color, because this region's all the same color, it'll only highlight the green region, this one for the blue, and then this one again for the red. Now let's just say I wanted to go ahead and have it look similar to the other one. Now I have to do a bunch more work, and they're not going to be separated. I'm going to grab my eraser tool, and I'm just going to erase right here. And now I'm going to grab my selection tool, and I'm using keyboard shortcuts for these. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in this color again. And now I've got these two shapes similar, not exact obviously, but similar in design, but the only difference is if I want to separate the triangle over here, I can do that very easily. Whereas the other one, I cannot. It's all one object, which makes things extremely difficult to work with, especially while animating. So try and keep in mind while creating your projects and doing labs and so on and so forth, that you remember to keep everything on a separate layer, because it becomes extremely difficult later if you decide that you actually want to animate something, and then you have to later on go ahead and separate these layers and redo your drawings and so on and so forth. It can take up quite a bit of time. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and just delete this one, and that's sort of, I'll keep it on the stage for now. I'm just going to lock it and lock these. And you'll notice when I turn the visibility off on the triangle, this triangle and circle, it will both disappear at the same time. Whereas this one, if I turn off the triangle and then the circle, I can keep them separate. So just an FYI on what the really big strength of having many layers can do for you. So now what we have here is I have this one shape and these two shapes. So going into, let's say I wanted to sort of organize my layers a little bit better, so I wanted to have a triangle, circle, similar but still separate layers. Let me go ahead and name this triangle, and this is a folder, and it's located directly next to the new layer, so it's right here, new folder. And then I'm going to take both of these, and then I'm going to go ahead and just drag them in there. Now again, another benefit of having separate layers is these I cannot separate unless I start to draw on another layer. I start erasing and then cutting things and pasting on different layers, and it could be really tedious. This way, let's just say I wanted to bring the circle above the triangle. Now I can just go ahead and adjust my layers, and now I've got the circle directly above my green triangle here. Really simple. Now if let's just say I wanted to have it like off to the side but still overlapping in a way, I've got that there. Now maybe I want the triangle to be above it, and I've got it like so. So those are really big benefits of having separate layers. Now some of the other things we can do now are adding frames. Now frames, I'm going to show you the 3 different types of frames. Oh, and let's go over one last thing in here. If I have a layer that I accidentally created for whatever reason, and let's say I want to delete it, and pressing the delete key just isn't going to do it. If you press the delete key, it's going to delete whatever's on the stage. But let's just say you wanted to delete this layer that we accidentally created. Go ahead right here, you'll notice the delete, and go ahead, click delete, and it just disappears, and it's deleted. So now let's talk about frames, keyframes, and blank keyframes. So I'm going to start with the first one on top, and I'm going to just right click and do insert frame. Now the reason the other two seem to have disappeared on the stage is because this is at frame 10 now instead of frame 1. So when we scrub through frame 1 all the way to frame 10, you'll notice that frame 1 has all of the objects located on frame 1, and you notice that in the timeline as well. And then here on frame 10, they're not there. So these 9 frames, they do not go through. So only on frame 1 will these appear. So let's go to frame 10 and let's insert a blank keyframe. Now the difference here is inserting a blank keyframe, you'll see that it's got a sort of a light gray square with it's sort of like an empty square with a circle, whereas this is a filled in square, you could say, with a darkened circle. And I'm going to go ahead on this one and insert keyframe. Now the insert keyframe, you notice it still maintains the same sort of icon status of the previous frame here, whereas this one does not. Let's go ahead and give this an extra 20 frames. And I just inserted frame. So these are just one frame that plays for 20 frames. This is one image that plays for 9 frames, and on the 10th frame it disappears because it's no longer there. That's a blank keyframe. And notice the difference between the circle and the triangle from frame 10 to 20. You'll see that this one has the empty circle, whereas this one has the filled in circle. And that is the major difference. So here, let's just say I wanted to have something different, and maybe I want it to be a square now. So I'm going to go ahead, grab a color, and let's just say I wanted to have it turn into a square or whatever. And I'm holding shift to make my lines appear straight. And you're going to notice here now, I'm going to change the color to blue. And I fill that in. Now I've got, when I play this back, triangle, square. So you saw what I just did there with inserting a blank keyframe. Now, which is all fine and dandy, so I play it back, I press enter, it plays back. If I press control enter, So every 10 frames. This is a looping animation right now. So when you press Control Enter, it exports it as a SWF file. I've heard two different things. It's either referencing a small web file, which seems to make sense. It's designed for the web originally, or shockwave file, which is another video format that's designed for the web. So either or are fine. I've heard both terms used before. So if you know the exact official term, please be sure to leave it below, but for the most part, both terms are totally acceptable. So now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you with some of these tools down here. So here's your play button. Here's step forward 1 frame. So let me bring it all the way back. This is go to first frame. This is go to last frame. And then this is step forward 1 frame. And that'll play just frame by frame. And this is step backward 1 frame. Okay, so now what we can do is I'm going to start a new layer, and I'm going to just show you what this onion skin tool is. It's a really tiny little checkbox located right down here. Onion skin. And then this onion skin outlines, they both do the same thing. So I'm going to click that on, and then you get these brackets. And you can go ahead and adjust these brackets like so. And in this case, I want my frames to, I'm going to start on frame, well, let's say 5. And I only want the previous 2 frames to appear. And let's say maybe 1 frame above if I decide to do that. So I'm going to start by just drawing, and I'm going to change this to black. And I'm just going to draw like a little circle. And then I'm going to press F7. F7 is the keyboard shortcut for insert blank keyframe. Now the difference here is that you'll see that it's showing the previous frame because I set my brackets that way. And you'll notice it's a little bit transparent or alpha. So if I turn this off, you'll notice it disappears. But if I turn my onion skin back on, it reappears. Same with the onion skin outlines. It'll just show the outline of the image. Now here, I can go ahead and I can just start to press F7, 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 and I'm just going to do this all the way through. And you'll notice that that is starting to do this transparent sort of thing. It doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. So I made it go 1 extra frame, and when I hit that F7 on the frame 20, it created frame 21 and extended all of these other frames, just so you're aware of what happened on your timeline. And now I'm going to go back here, I'm going to turn my onion skin back on one more time, and let's say I only want to see the 1 last frame and the 1 frame before it, so I can draw an in-between. And I'm going to draw one right in here, so it in-betweens. So that's the manual way of in-betweening. And now when I play it back, we've created our first little animation with using the onion skin tool. So we've used layers, we've used inserting blank keyframes, we've inserted frames, we've inserted keyframes, and now we've used the onion skin tool. Now there's one other tool that's extremely useful. It's the edit multiple frames tool. I'm going to click that, and you'll notice this is only going back 2 frames, so I need to set my brackets just like the onion skin. I'm going to use my selection tool here. I'm going to click and run a drag over every single one of these frames, and I'm simply just going to move it like so. I think that's a pretty decent spot. Now I'm going to turn my edit multiple frames off, and now I'm going to go ahead and run and play, and you'll notice it just shifted every single one of those frames over to the right because that's all I told it to do. Now if I press Control Return, it's a 21 frame animation that just continuously loops, and we notice that the square triangle here changes at frame 10 because we inserted a blank keyframe. Now there was nothing we could really do to this one because it wasn't on separate layers. So we would have to draw each frame similar to how we did this one, depending on what you actually wanted to do with it. So layers make your life extremely easier when animating. It helps out a ton. And then here we have this ball that goes, or circle, or whatever you want to call it, just going ahead from left to right. I didn't really take my time to try to time out the in-betweens and so on and so forth, but you guys get the point. So that's really all there is to the timeline. Those are all the tools that you'll be using down here. Modify markers. You can add markers. This is sort of just like to tell you, kind of keep like little notes on what you want to modify and things like that. Not really necessary to go over at the moment. This is what frame that you're on, so you can always go ahead and tell this. You can even click on it to say, let's say I want to be on frame 3. Now I'm on frame 3. I'm going to go ahead and turn the onion skin tool off as well while I'm at it. And then here we can scrub through our timeline if I had a lot of frames on here. And this will magnify the timeline to make it a little bit easier to work with. And this will reset it to the default zoom on your timeline. So the small little mountains basically means it'll be getting further away. And here it'll zoom closer, and this is reset to default. Now the other thing is the loop button. If I press this, I have to adjust the brackets to where I want it to loop, and then I can go ahead and hit play down here, and it's going to loop right through. So you don't have to do that Control-Enter where it plays the Swift for you. But however, those are all of the tools located down here in our timeline that we're going to be using very, very soon. So I hope you enjoyed watching this, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and hope you enjoyed watching.